Welcome back to another episode of Brews Bets. My name is Steve Ricciardi. With me, as always, is CG. CG, how we doing?
We're doing all right.
Excited for this fight card or what? Close to Ottawa, so.
Yeah. So, went for the home run last week. Came up short, so ready to get back on the horse. Compared to last week, I'm not as enthused about this fight card, but you know what? Whenever there's a night of fights, it's not a bad thing.
No, definitely. Tyler will be in the chat later on. He's shuffling back and forth with some softball obligations. But we have two guests this week. Dan Levy from Best Fight Picks. Dan, how we doing?
Doing amazing, man. I appreciate you having me on. You guys have always shown me a lot of support. So when you asked me to come on, it was a no-brainer, and I'm excited to talk fights with y'all. Anytime that there's a card, it's an opportunity to make money. So let's get down to business.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to get right into this, and we got one more guest. Dr. Beans, how are we doing, sir?
Good. Glad to be on the podcast again. Now I can make fun of Tyler for playing softball.
Yeah, well, the racquetball king is here, the softball king is here, and the betting king. So, CG, get us started off here. First fight of the night, we have Mitch Gagnon and Cole Smith. And again, we're sponsored by MyBookie. So on MyBookie right now, Mitch Gagnon's minus 120. Cole Smith is minus 110. Give us a little breakdown here. What do you think?
All right, so hopefully I pronounced these names right. We have Mitch Gagnon, UFC vet. He hasn't fought in 2.5 years, hasn't won in almost 5 years. 11 of Gagnon's 12 wins came by submission. He's short, stocky, about 5'5", has 5 wins by guillotine, and once he locks it up, he goes all in for it. Actually went 3 rounds with Renan Barriault back in 2014 when Renan Barriault actually had a pulse. Cole Smith is the younger fighter by 5 years, much taller at 5'11", finished 5 of his 6 wins. He's okay, interesting prospect. He throws elbows when he breaks from the clinch, which is something that I love to see. And, overall, I think he's a decent prospect. And it's a fight that I'm not going to have too much exposure in altogether. Gagnon's inactivity concerns me a little bit. I know he's had some injuries. So because of that, I think it's going to be dog or pass for me. We just really have no reason to believe that Mitch Gagnon's going to bounce back effectively from those injuries that could still be nagging right now. And, these guys are kind of similar in terms of, the majority of their wins being by submission. So, gun to my head, I'm going to go with the taller, rangier fighter that's been more active. So Cole Smith is my preferred play in this matchup.
Yeah, and this fight is also favored to go to decision. So if anybody wants to put a play in on that, I kind of think that minus 160 is my play here if fight goes to decision. But Dan, what do you think here? Anything to add? Any bets you like here?
I mean, it's tough to say if I like any bets here because obviously with Cole Smith, we don't know enough about him. And with Mitch Gagnon, I don't know about you guys, but I've personally never been impressed with him. I mean, just to put it into perspective, after TJ Dillashaw absolutely destroyed Renan Barriault twice, Renan Barriault only beat 2 guys, Felipe, the male nurse Nover, and Mitch Gagnon. And, since that point, he took 2 years off. He comes back against Matthew Lopez, gets smoked in that fight. And now he's coming back another 2 or 3 years later. And, I mean, Cole Smith, he hasn't really fought this level of competition. But when you look at who Mitch Gagnon has fought, I know Renan Barriault and Matthew Lopez are obviously higher-level guys, but he got smoked by those guys. So, man, I'm going to go with Cole Smith, but I wouldn't be surprised either way because, I just haven't seen enough on the kid.
So, Dave, it doesn't seem like anyone's committing to any bets here. You got anything for this fight?
Sorry. I'm not 100% confident one way or another on this fight, just like these two guys, but I'm kind of going the other way. Smith's, all he does is go for a takedown. Doesn't set it up with strikes, anything. And I think Mitch at least has some striking ability and is a quicker guy. And I think he'll be able to, keep it on the feet and possibly get a decision victory.
All right, so let's get right into the second fight. This is a fight that I'm going to be betting, so I'll introduce it and then throw it back around to you guys. This is Juan Adams and Arjan Bhullar. Juan Adams right now is minus 120 on MyBookie. Earlier in the day, he was minus 111. Arjan Bhullar is minus 110 at this point. So if anyone's listened to our podcast or James Lynch over the last few weeks, Juan Adams is guested on both. And he basically walks around at about 290, 285 to 290. He claims that he's going to be cutting down, obviously, to the 265 limit, 266 limit. And he's going to balloon back up to about 285 on fight night. So he should be an easy 30 to 40 pounds heavier than Arjan Bhullar in that cage. In my opinion, he lands a higher average. He is a Division I wrestler, and he's wrestled, from what he told us on our podcast, over 100 Division I matches. And Arjan Bhullar, although he was a Canadian wrestling Olympic team guy, he wrestled NAIA in college. So Juan doesn't have much respect for Arjan, which does concern me a little bit. I know Arjan Bhullar is at AKA. He was definitely working out with Kane at AKA. I'm assuming he's getting top-notch training over there. But if you look at some of his fights, he was able to clinch up with Marcelo Gome a little bit, struggled to get the takedown until later in the fight. And I think most of that third round, Gome spent on his back. I think Bhullar was able to just take that lead in the third round. But I'm pretty sure it was 1-1 going into that third round. And Gome was able to get off a little bit on the feet with his striking. And I think Juan Adams is going to be able to do the same. And again, with a 40-pound weight difference, I think he's going to be able to do some damage. So I'm definitely putting a play on Juan Adams. Right now on my bookie, minus 120 sounds pretty good to me. So CG, what do you think here?
It's a tough fight. Juan Adams, mountain of a man, 6'5", like you mentioned, cuts down to the heavyweight limit. He has that 81-inch reach. A lot of talent, but, do have some concerns. He was taken down by Chris De La Roca in his last fight, and it took Adams 3 rounds to dispose of him. So don't feel great about that. Always worry about Arjan Bhullar taking Adams down and just, pulling the lay and pray. But there's going to be such a big weight and I think overall strength disparity between the two. I mean, Juan's just so much bigger, might be 40 to 50 pounds larger by the time fight night rolls around. So Juan is definitely way more dangerous. He can end the fight at any time. He just has that power, which Bhullar just doesn't have. Plus, with Arjan Bhullar, it's going to be tough for me to ever bet a guy that was subbed with an omoplata. So I guess my preferred play is Juan Adams.
Now, preferred play or bet? What are we talking here right now?
You know what? I think I have to look into this fight a little bit more, but, looking at the line on my bookie right now, Arjan's minus 110. You said Juan Adams minus 120. So I think minus 120 is a pretty good line for Juan Adams. He's much more dangerous than Bhullar. It did look like Adams gassed out pretty early in his last fight, didn't it? It
did. It did. I think it was from some high volume striking early in that fight. And again, not for nothing, but De La Rocha he can take a beating. So I think he got hit with some good shots, and I think he took a little bit of a beating there.
Yeah, I guess Juan did average 9.4 strikes per minute after his first fight, so volume was there.
Yeah, he threw a lot. Dan, what do you think? Talk me out of this Juan Adams bet. What are you looking at?
Man, I'm going the opposite way of both of you on this one, man, because you guys look at it as him weighing 275 pounds as that's a good thing. I see it as a bad thing. That means to me that he's not disciplined with his diet. That means to me that he's having an extreme weight cut. And that also means to me, just like we saw in his last fight, he's going to gas out if he doesn't get an early finish. And with a guy like Arjan, I mean, one thing about him is he pushes that pace. And I know he got tapped out with an omoplata, but, I mean, I'll give you a 20 to 1 odds that Juan Adams doesn't get him with an omoplata in this fight. You know what I mean? So, and plus, at least he took his first L because, no one is exempt from that first L. And I do believe this Saturday is Juan Adams' first L. And about the wrestling credentials, I mean, yeah, he's D1, but, he never placed. He was never a national champ, nothing like that. I mean, no disrespect. D1, that's badass, but, he wasn't like top tier D1 or nothing like that, whereas Arjan was an Olympic wrestler. So, man, even though I haven't been that impressed with Arjan, one thing I know about him is that he's disciplined and he's not out here partying and doing the whole bit. I mean, Juan Adams looks the part. He looks scary, but I just haven't been impressed, man. So maybe he comes out here and stops Arjan, But I'm going with Arjan by decision. I think that once Juan Adams starts to slow down, that's when the takedown comes. And one thing about Arjan is, yeah, he doesn't score that many takedowns. It's because when he finally does score one, guys don't tend to get up. And also about Golem, I know Golem got killed 2 weeks ago, but Golem's really tough to take down. I mean, Golem fought Tim Johnson, who's a D1 wrestler, and Tim Johnson couldn't take him down even one time. So I wouldn't look at not being able to take down Golem as, evidence here that you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I'm going to go with Arjan here, be a decision.
All right, Dave, what do you think? Are you with Dan here, or are you with CG and I with a bet on Juan Adams?
I'm on the Juan Adams train. Ooh. He definitely sold me because when he was talking, one, he has a girlfriend now, so he can't go out partying as much and stuff like that. She wants him to have a six-pack, so that's definitely limiting his party ability. He's working with a nutritionist now as well that he stated, so he's trying to stay even lighter. He said he was trying to stay around 280-ish. When he's not fighting. So I think he's coming in serious about this camp, and he wants to put a lick in the Bhullar.
Yeah, I guess it does help that, Bhullar is going to be the smaller guy at 6'1", so he's not going to have to really change levels as much to execute the takedown. So,
but it's going to have a longer time to get there, though.
I mean, I think this is going to be interesting. This is going to be a good fight, and I'm interested since we're on opposite sides. I'm interested to watch this fight even more now. Dave, let me throw it back to you to introduce this next fight. We got Matt Sayles and Kyle Nelson. Right now, Matt Sayles is minus 225. The line is going up a little bit on my bookie. Kyle Nelson's plus 185. Kyle Nelson's actually dropping down in weight. Last time out, he was at 155, so he's dropping down on a 145 level. So what do you think about this one?
We got Matt Sayles. He's 25 years old, fights out of Alliance MMA. He was Dominic Cruz's training partner. He's 6 of his 7 wins are by KO. He seems to get better as the fight goes along, which is kind of the opposite of Kyle Nelson. Kyle Nelson typically starts strong, gets most of his wins in the first round, and if not, he kind of tends to struggle. But Kyle Nelson's also dropping down a weight class and should be big. He's going to already be 3 inches taller than him, probably, after, the weight cut, he's probably going to weigh 15, 20 pounds more than him. But for a bet, I don't think minus 225, I would bet it on Matt Sayles. I think, if anything, it's a dog or play pass on this one. I think Kyle Nelson could get the early finish. But after that, Sayles is going to take over. It's going to be, if anything, you'd bet like round 2 or 3 on Sayles to finish possibly.
Yeah, maybe a live bet or something like that. All right. Dan, what do you think?
Man, I agree with him a lot, man. I'm super impressed with Matt Sayles. I actually bet him in his debut. Didn't come through, but I felt like Blake Grice could have deducted points for the eye pokes, and obviously he had 2 torn retinas as a result, but now he's coming back, and I love this kid's striking style. Very, very calm in the pocket, very efficient out there, and very mature for not having that many pro fights under his belt, man. I'm very impressed with a guy like Matt Sayles. And Kyle Nelson, one thing you got to give him credit for is the dude hits like a truck. The dude's going to come out there that first round. He's going to try to score a knockout victory. So, I mean, if this goes all 3 rounds, it could be fight of the night. But I agree with what you're saying that for whatever reason, I don't think it's because, Kyle Nelson doesn't run his miles or this or that. I just think he throws so damn hard that as a result, he tends to slow down a bit. And that's where a guy like Matt Sayles, who's not necessarily throwing 100% into each punch, that's where he can take over, start digging to the body, and get him out late. So I do like Matt Sayles here as well.
Yeah, I was impressed with what you just mentioned with Kyle Nelson. He hit Diego Ferreira with a couple shots in that fight, early in that fight before he got taken out. But I was impressed with that. CG, what do you think? Any plays here in this fight?
I like Matt Sayles a lot as well. Lands at a high rate, 6.5 strikes per minute. Like Dave mentioned, 6 of his 7 wins came by knockout. He goes for the finish. He's a headhunter. I was very impressed with his fight against Shaman Marias. And Kyle Nelson, he has some punching power, but when you look at his record, I mean, the biggest feather in his cap that I can see is a split decision win over Jonathan Brookins. I just don't think he's going to have enough. I think Sayles is going to be superior. I mean, he's training with killers on a daily basis like Jeremy Stevens, Dominic Cruz, Miles Jury, UFC caliber fighters. I don't think Nelson's getting those same reps in practice. I just think Sayles is going to be too much for him. I like Sayles probably by knockout on Saturday.
CG, you playing Sayles straight, or you gonna parlay him with anybody at minus?
I haven't been very I haven't been very good with these inside the distance props lately. So, I got to stop being so goddamn greedy. So I'll just like Sayles to win the fight. Probably parlay it with some other fights.
All right, so Sayles minus 225 on my bookie. That's what you're looking at, Nate?
Yes, correct.
All right, I got you. All right, Dan, let me throw it right back to you. We got Nordine Taleb and Kyle Prepolec. Taleb is minus 400 on my bookie, and Prepolec is plus 300. Is Taleb your guy here? What do you think?
Taleb is my guy here, man, because, look, much respect to Prepolec. Obviously, I've actually known about him for a while. The kid gets a lot of hype over there in Canada. But, man, so the good is that he's got a nice left high kick, throws some big bombs. He's knocked people out. He's got some experience, been in there with UFC vets before. The bad is that the guy's a 55er. And, I mean, his last fight, he couldn't even finish Cody Pfister. And prior to that, he's losing to guys like Alessandro Ricci, who I don't know if you guys remember. That's that guy that Jeremy Kennedy ran through and Paul Felder ran through and, then was out the UFC. That guy beat Prepolec. And also he lost to Troy Lamson as well, who, like, friends of mine that I hang out with just fought Troy Lamson yesterday. So I don't think he's ready for the UFC right now, and I don't think he's a welterweight. Now he's taking on one of the biggest welterweights in the division, Nordine. And I know Nordine's coming off 2 losses, but, I mean, Claudio Silva, who also beat Leon Edwards, and Sean Strickland, who's 20-3. You know what I mean? Like, this is just a completely different level. I think unless he gets caught with something big, a high kick, an overhand, I think Nordine Taleb's going to give this kid the vet lesson.
Now, Dan, do you look at inside the distance props? Do you bet those at all, or do you just take guys straight up?
I take guys straight up. For whatever reason, when this opened, it was a pick 'em with a lean on Prepolec, which is kind of interesting. I was wondering what the deal was with that. But then sharp action came in. It got hammered all the way to minus 400. And now when it opened across most of the other books, it opened around 4-1, man. Which is where, I mean, I personally said it more, minus 300, but I understand where everyone's coming from because of all the reasons I mentioned. This kid's a 55er. He's struggling with Cody Pfister last fight, you know what I mean, which was 2 months ago. And now he's taking on Nordine. Not saying it can't happen, but I got Nordine, man. I think that just the size, the experience, the Muay Thai, the technique, everything is too much.
Yeah, and Pfister took that fight on like 2 days' notice, right? When I watched
exactly, that's a good thing you bring up there. So Pfister takes the fight off the couch and still takes the kids back. But I mean, I don't want to discredit the guy. The kid is experienced, does hit hard, but I just think this is too big of a leap. But props to him for getting that call. Maybe he'll win his next fight.
Yeah, no, definitely. Dave, what do you think here? Any bets here? Is he a parlay piece for you?
If anything, it would be a parlay piece, but I didn't get a ton of study on, Kyle because of the late, replacement. But yeah, I don't see a way that Kyle's going to win this. Taleb should just be able to pick him apart on the feet.
Listen, I should have went right to CG because I know CG is going to have like a five-way parlay and Taleb's going to be in there. So CG, what do you think here?
Oh man, yeah, I agree with Dan, and Taleb was finished in his last 2 fights, but I do think he gets back in the win column. So Prepolec, yeah, I mean he's just 5'10". He fights at 155 typically. He's just doesn't have the size to compete at 170. My guess is that Taleb cruises to a risk-averse grappling-based decision similar to his win against Oliver Enkamp. It should be an easy win for Taleb, but probably a boring-ass fight. So, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to parlay this. Just, Taleb didn't look good in his last 2 fights. I mean, he should have, I would like to think an overwhelming advantage over Prepolec, but at the same time, I don't like betting against first-time UFC fighters. So, I've seen some tape on the guy, but, he's going to be fighting in front of the, hometown Canadian fans. And so, I don't know.
Taleb's also 37 too.
Yeah, he is older. He's 37, but he trained. I mean, I know he's French, but he trains out of TriStar, so he is kind of a Canadian guy too,
And he did part of this camp in Tiger Muay Thai as well.
Oh, Taleb did? Dan, you were saying Taleb did part of his camp or Prepolec?
No, Taleb did most of his camp in Thailand at Tiger Muay Thai, and then finished it off at TriStar.
Interesting. Because if he comes out and kind of gives a performance on the toes, like who am I thinking of? Just
Khalil Roundtree.
Khalil Roundtree. If he gives a Khalil Roundtree performance, that is the play right there. Taleb inside the distance. If you believe that's going to happen again.
But Khalil went the decision though.
Yeah, he did. But again, Eric Anders is tough. I mean, they could have stopped that fight. Eric Anders could barely walk after that fight. His legs were beat up.
He was knocked down, 4 times or something?
Yeah. It was. I mean, his legs were beat up. I still don't know why Khalil didn't shoot and try to take him down earlier in that fight, but that's for another day. So, CG, let's throw it right back to you for Vince Morales and Aiemann Zahabi. Zahabi's minus 165 on my bookie. Vince Morales is plus 135. Zahabi took that brutal back fist. It was kind of the second of 2 back fists, right? He got hit with a back fist and then came right back. Ramos hit him with a second back fist and laid him out, toes curled and everything. So he took a decent layoff. I think he was off for about 16 months at this point, and he's coming back in here. So, CG, what do you think?
So this fight's
I just pop on, and you're not going to ask me who I like in that fight?
What Ty? I didn't even say here, man. Welcome to the podcast.
I came in midway through, so I didn't really hear the breakdown. But Talib's going to win. Go ahead, CG. I just wanted to make a little entrance.
So this fight with Zahabi and Morales, I think it's interesting. Zahabi's coming into this fight with a 7-1 record, finished 6 fights on the regional scene, but has been less than impressive at the UFC level, beating Ronaldo Vieira by decision, then getting TKO'd by Lamas. Morales has 8 wins, 5 TKOs, 2 subs. I think his greatest accomplishment is going the distance with Song Yadong, who's lightning fast, ridiculously explosive. Yadong hit Morales with a spinning back kick. I think it was in the first round, and Morales just shook it off. It tells me he's a tough, gritty kid, doesn't get rattled very easily. And according to Fight Metric, Morales landed 74 strikes in that fight compared to Yadong, who landed 79 strikes, although Yadong had 2 takedowns. So, I mean, didn't really have UFC jitters and was somewhat competitive with Song Yadong, one of the best prospects at 135. So that impressed me. And I don't know. I just don't really understand this line. Zahabi is a very rudimentary striker. It just seems kind of basic. I know he's a black belt in jits, but Morales has more volume. I think he can compete on his feet. So to me, in this fight, I don't feel comfortable enough with Morales to bet it. But gun to my head, it's dog or pass.
Go ahead, Dan. What do you think here? Any bets?
Man, I certainly wouldn't bet Zahabi after, what he's been through, the layoff, the knockout, all that. But this strikes me as a matchup where, you know who his brother is, right? I feel like they picked this kid to fight, and they see a very game plannable opponent. You know what I mean? Like Vince Morales, super exciting. Check out his fight on Contender Series versus Domingo Pilarte. Amazing fight. I like the kid. He throws big bombs. He comes to fight. But this really seems like a matchup where Zahabi can pick him apart on the feet, mix in the takedowns, and go out there and win a decision. Unless he gets caught with a big shot, man. He is coming off that knockout. Who knows where his confidence is at? But I think he has taken the proper amount of time off. And if his head is still into this, I'm going to go with Zahabi via decision.
It's not a bad play at all. Dan, I'm sorry, Dave, what do you think here?
As far as betting wise, I would probably play the underdog Morales. Zahabi struggles a little bit with the jab, and Vince Morales actually has a pretty good jab and knows how to throw good combinations, and he also hits like a truck. So I just think Zahabi, after being knocked out, is probably going to be a little gun shy going in there with a guy who's going to be quick, landing a good jab and then landing some bombs as well. So I think if it's probably a dog or pass for me.
Tyler, you jumped in before, but anything to add on this? You making any plays here?
Yeah, so I actually like Zahabi quite a bit in this fight. Right now the line's at minus 150, I believe. And Morales, he is a good striker, but he gets hit a lot and he has horrible takedown defense. I think Zahabi has a pretty clear game plan where he's just going to take it to the ground. I don't know if he's going to get the stoppage, but Morales is not good on the ground, and he's not good on the ground. He doesn't have good takedown defense. I see that this has a pretty clear path to victory. It might be a decision, but at minus 150, I think Zahabi is good to go.
Zahabi's not much of a wrestler, though, is he?
No, but he could take it down.
And 5-star wrestling.
Yeah, I mean he trains with a bunch of wrestlers. You have to think that he is getting some wrestling training, and Morales is not a good defensive wrestler by any means.
So Ty, let's throw it right back to you, since everyone else has had a shot at introducing a fight here. Sarah Moras and Macy Chiasson. Is this worth playing? I guess the only play here that I could even see is Chiasson by KO TKO. Is she knocking her out? What do you think?
I mean, by rights, she should. I don't think that Moraes is a good fighter. Chiasson, she's going to have a reach advantage, 5-inch reach advantage, going to have a height advantage. She looked really impressive in her last fight. And I think that was the one that I was down in Vegas for covering. I just think that she could pretty much win on the feet, or if it goes to the ground, she has the advantage there too. I don't know if I would touch the line at minus 700. I kind of probably take a wait and see approach and see how different props play out for this fight. But she should have no problem.
Yeah, right now Chiasson wins inside the distance is minus 240. And I think if you wanted to get better odds, maybe TKO, KO, TKO. I don't think she's going to submit anybody.
She actually goes for quite a bit of submissions also if the fight goes to the ground. So
if you really like it inside the distance or maybe by decision, I don't know. Chiasson by decision is plus 290 if you really want to gamble.
No, I think she's going to stop it. I just don't know if I would touch it at minus 240.
CG, anything?
Chiasson is a beast, and I think she cruises, and I think she needs a top 10 opponent after this. I mean, she's really impresses me. I mean, she's got the size, she's got the power, she has the finishing prowess. I'm a big fan of Chiasson.
Yeah, and on Tough, the Tough show, she fought at 145 and is cutting to 135, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
So Fight Metric has her listed at 5'11", but ShareDog has her listed at 5'9". Either way, she is a big girl.
So she came in the media room. She's 5'11". I'm 5'9". She was taller than me by a good amount.
Wow.
Yeah, so she may have a 4-inch height advantage, 5-inch reach advantage. Dan, do you play these kind of props or you just go straight up? So you're going to stay away from this?
Yes, sir. Got to stay away from it. I mean, honestly, it's dog or pass, but the pick is Chiasson for sure. Because, I mean, Sarah Moras, all she does is flop to her back, and sometimes she'll get a fluke armbar here and there. If Chiasson doesn't make any mistakes, she should win, but you can't lay down that minus 700. There's a lot to like about Chiasson, though. Trains at Fortis MMA. You know they're constantly producing lots of top prospects, so I'll be keeping an eye out, but no bet.
Dave, I think we're beating a dead horse here, so let's just get right into this next fight, and I'll throw it to you for a little intro. So Andrew Sanchez on my bookie is minus 160. Marc-Andre Barriault, I'm not great with these French-Canadian names, but Barriault, I believe, is plus 130 on my bookie. Who do you like here?
I've kind of gone back and forth on this. It's hard to tell because Sanchez switched over the TriStar, and one of his biggest problems has always been his cardio issues. And his last fight, he actually seemed somewhat improved upon it, still kind of gas in the third. But that's, a big issue. So it's hard to trust a guy that has bad cardio. But training at TriStar could always help, with guys like GSP and et cetera. But Barriault, man, that guy's been in 5-round fights multiple times. He hasn't always gone all 5 rounds, but he has gone there. I mean, he is dropping, or he floats between light heavyweight and middleweight, Barriault. But man, it's a tough one. I haven't. If anything, I'll probably could go with the dog, but it's going to be a great fight. I think they're both going to throw punches. The only thing I don't like about Barriault is he kind of reminds me of Gaethje when he just, like, when people are coming to attack him, he just puts his hands above his head and leaves his body wide open. But Sanchez is not going to throw kicks or throw hits to the body. He throws most of his strikes to the head, and you just kind of sit there and take stuff. It's like, he has got a good chin, but I don't know. I think Barriault takes this one late, gets a late KO.
Okay, calling the shot, late KO. I think the CJ, one of the things with Sanchez, I think he was in camp with Rory, right? Probably at TriStar. In his last fight, Eric Spicely and Joe Duffy were in his corner. So he's got fighters around him. You know, obviously Faraz Zahabi's there. Who knows who else is in camp with him? But you know, he's got the pedigree. He did win that tough 23, and again, I think he's working on the cardio. So, what do you think here? Any bets?
I don't feel confident enough in Andrew Sanchez to bet him. So I think he should cruise to a grappling-based decision. He was able to get back in the win column after dropping those two to Anthony Smith and Ryan Janis. His cardio did look better against Perez, but I wonder if it's because he didn't really wrestle in his last fight. He outstruck Perez 73-54, 0 takedowns. So I wonder if it's the grappling that really gasses him out. And I think the guy's name is Barriault. So Barriault had some impressive striking, some vicious knockouts from the fights that I was watching. 8 of his 11 wins are by knockout. I think if he has a striking-based game plan against Barriault, as Dan would say, he could end up taking a canvas nap. So, I mean, I think if Sanchez can neutralize him, take him to the ground, grapple him to death, then Sanchez should cruise to a grappling-based decision. If he chooses to stand, I really think he could get knocked out. So, tough fight to call for me. I'm passing.
All right, passing on that one.
The good thing about Barriault, though, he does have good takedown defenses from the fights that I've watched. And when he gets into the clinch, that's when he likes to do most of his striking. So it's going to be tough for Sanchez to get in there for a takedown without absorbing some good strikes.
And again, he may be bigger, right? He does fight at that light heavyweight.
Yeah, he was the former middleweight and light heavyweight KO or TKO champion.
He has a win over, I think his name was Adam Hunter, who was supposed to fight Ryan Janis, but I believe Adam Hunter got busted for steroids or some performance-enhancing drug. Is that right?
Not positive on that one.
That was the light heavyweight championship fight against Hunter. Yeah, I have that written down. I did watch that fight today.
Hunter was supposed to fight in the UFC, then he got popped for something, and then...
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Okay.
True story.
Go ahead, Dan. What else do you know about this fight? Do you know anything else about him?
Man, I know that when I saw the dog odds against Andrew Sanchez, I was like, okay, let's check the kid out. Apparently, he's a 2-division champ over in whatever regional scene they have over there in Canada. But man, I wasn't that impressed, man. Very slow. I mean, he does hit hard, so Andrew Sanchez does have to look out. But, I mean, Andrew Sanchez has fought hard hitters before and neutralized them. You know, Khalil Roundtree, Marcus Maluko in his last fight. So I think he's learned from his mistakes. Definitely showed some improvement. I'm a lean towards Andrew Sanchez to grind out a split decision here.
All right, Tyler, what do you think here? Any bets on Sanchez?
Yeah, so Sanchez has faced hard hitters, but I think that he hasn't faced a hard hitter with the wrestling pedigree that I don't even know how to say his name, but Barriault. He hasn't faced somebody with the wrestling pedigree that he has. You know, he's went 5 rounds. He's winning 5-round fights versus some of the top fighters in Canada on the regional scene. I think that he's ready for this jump up. I don't really necessarily think that Sanchez is that high level in the UFC spectrum. Pretty much, I was actually surprised that Barriault was an underdog, and I think that he's gonna keep this fight standing, and he's gonna pick him apart.
Interesting. Maybe even a DraftKings play there too with a finish possibility.
Yeah, I mean he's perfect for a GPP.
Yeah,
I know we don't talk about it much, but I mean,
yeah, you got to come to the Quan Edge if you want that information. Yeah. Dan, let me throw it back to you. We talked about this fight, Walt Harris and Sergey Spivak off air. So let's put some of this pen to paper here. Walt Harris on my bookie is -165, and Spivak is +135. Undefeated 9-0. What do you think here?
Man, it's another one that's tough to call because with Walt Harris, obviously he's got the athleticism, hits hard, but for whatever reason, the dude just doesn't pull the trigger. And like last fight, it was like, here's Andrei Arlovsky, who's 2-8 in his last 10 fights. Here's Andrei Arlovsky on a silver platter, and he still doesn't pull the trigger, man. So, man, it's just it's tough to trust him in any spot these days. And with Sergey Spivak, you know what happened the last time Walt Harris fought someone from Ukraine, right? He got knocked out with a head kick in 16 seconds by Krylov, and that was Krylov's second fight. This is Spivak's first fight. Not saying that means anything. Just wanted to give you a little bit of history there with how Walt Harris does versus Ukrainian fighters. But seriously, I mean, Spivak, he hasn't fought this level of competition, but he's ran through the guys that you're supposed to run through on that heavyweight circuit to get to the UFC. You know, the Travis Fultons, the Tony Lopez's, all those guys. And he ran through them accordingly in the first round. I mean, knocked guys out with head kicks, with punches, submitted guys with schoolyard headlocks like Alexei Olenek. So, I mean, the guy's fun to watch, and he's young, he's youthful. It just comes down to the experience because I think he's got the potential, man. I think that with some seasoning, you know, he could be an exciting guy to watch. It's just about, is he ready right now? So I don't know. That's where the betting line comes in. That's where, do you want to take that shot on Spivak to see if he's ready to go right now? Because you know with Walt Harris, you know what you're going to get. He can knock anyone out, but he also doesn't pull the trigger. So at least Spivak can know that, listen, man, he's not Chase Sherman. He's not Cyril Asker. He's not Mark Godbeer. He's better than all these guys that Walt Harris has been knocking out. And honestly, he's better than Andrei Arlovsky too. I don't care if he's a former UFC world champion. He's 2-9 in his last 11 fights. So I'm gonna go with the upset here. I'm gonna go against the grain and pick Sergey Spivak to upset a trigger shy Walt Harris.
I don't know how technical the schoolyard headlock is, but I'm definitely cutting that clip, Dan. So you're going to see that all over Twitter over the next few days.
Oh, man.
Dave, what do you think here? Schoolyard headlock or what? Dave, you there?
You're on mute, Dave.
All right, I'm back. I'm going the other way. I think Walt Harris is going to get the win here. It's probably going to end up being a second round KO, but I don't have a ton of interest in this fight in general.
Interesting. So we're kind of 50-50 here. Tyler, what do you think here? Are you on Walt Harris or the schoolyard headlock?
You know, I'm kind of on the fence in this fight. I don't like Walt Harris necessarily as a fighter, but you don't really know what you're getting with Spivak. He's looked good on the regional scene. He's faced some veterans of the sport. He's looked good in those fights. He definitely has some ways to win the fight. I just don't know where he's at in terms of his career. I mean, this is going to be a good test to show because, I mean, he definitely could come out and just starch Walt Harris. That's a real possibility. But because I don't really think that Walt Harris is necessarily good in any aspect of the sport. But you just really don't know. So I'm kind of leaning towards a dog or pass situation. Right now, I'm kind of on the fence.
So, CG, with Tyler leaning to the dog or pass, that could be 2 on Spivak and 1 on Harris. What do you think? Break the tie here.
So I think Walt has solid stand-up. I think he's agile on his feet, has some good movement. He does have power in his hands, but, you know, like everybody's mentioned, I mean, he doesn't pull the trigger. And that shows with this 2.8 strikes per minute. I mean, that's not good. He doesn't grapple. So, I mean, if he doesn't get the knockout, I just don't know if he's going to do enough to get the decision victory. So that makes it a risky play. From what I've seen from Spivak, I wasn't impressed with his ground game. I know he's got a couple wins by armbar. It looked like he was fighting a bunch of cans, but I mean, the guy's a heavyweight. He's 6'3", he's 260 pounds. He's from the Ukraine, so he's probably been fighting since he was 3 years old. You know, that's what they do over there. So, I mean, it's a heavyweight fight. Everybody has power in this division, so there's a lot of volatility. I like to think that Walt is going to win the fight, but I don't trust Walt at this point. So I have to do a little more research, but, you know, I think Walt's going to win. I don't feel confident enough to bet him at this point.
All right, so it is tied at 2-2 with you guys. CG, I'm going to throw it right back to you. I'm a big fan of both of these guys. This is a fight that I think is going to be a pretty good fight on this card. Brad Katona and Merab Dvalishvili. I think I said that somewhat right. I was at cage side for Ricky Simone and Merab, and we literally at the end of the fight we had no idea who won that fight. I still don't know how they called that fight a finish, so you guys can talk about that. But Merab is on my bookie is -165. Brad Katona is +135. He won the tough 145-pound division. So right now he's going to be at 135 in this fight. But Merab, damn, I mean, 7-8 takedowns a fight. This is going to be action packed. So CG, what do you think here?
Yeah, I mean, you have 7.3 takedowns per fight against somebody with 42% takedown defense. Merab can take Katona down for sure. I mean, he's taken Sanz down and Ricky Simone down, who both have wrestling backgrounds. But Katona, I think, is a good prospect. He's a smart kid. He has an engineering degree and even talks like a robot. If Merab gets the fight to the ground, I have no doubt that Katona will be able to get back to his feet. Katona is the better boxer. I think he competed in Golden Gloves. But the thing is, I mean, with Merab, I mean, you're going to get the rinse and repeat takedowns. But will it be enough? I mean, Dvalishvili is the only guy that scored. He's got to be the only guy in UFC history to score 11 takedowns in a fight and lose. Because I think in the judge's eyes, is he doing enough? He's taking you down. The opponent gets back up. He's taking them down again, but he doesn't really advance. He doesn't really control from top position. And so he's going to be fighting in Canada against a guy from Winnipeg. So I don't know. I mean, it's a close fight. Merab has the wrestling edge. Katona has the striking and the jiu-jitsu. I think it'll be a very close fight. Don't feel confident enough in this fight to bet it. And it could honestly go either way. I don't know how you can be confident in this fight.
No, yeah, and this could be a big score on DraftKings too, with the number of takedowns, advances, and all that other stuff that gets scored. Tyler, what do you think here? Brad, Merab, you want any one of these guys for a bet?
Yeah, I kind of agree with everybody else on Katona being a good prospect, but I think this is a terrible matchup for him. He has real problems stopping the takedown. Dvalishvili, that's all he does is go for takedowns. You know, I just see him getting him down. Maybe he'll get back up. He's going right back down. And I think that this has the makings of a Dvalishvili decision win. I'm just going to take him straight, but I actually feel pretty confident in it.
Okay, so we got a couple people like Merab. Dan, what do you think here?
My boy Tyler hit the nail on the head here, man. I mean, listen, the pace of Merab is just too much for Katona. Katona has very poor takedown defense, and this guy Merab doesn't just take down regular, grapplers. He takes down D1 wrestlers like Frankie Saenz 11 times, and I know he took him down 11 times and lost, but like he had the flu in that fight. Not to give him an excuse or anything like that, but he was allegedly super sick in that fight, and he kept getting hurt to the body against Saenz. I really feel like if they fought a bunch more times that Merab would win, but they only fight that one time and he lost, so that sucks for everyone that bet on it. But man, I just feel like his ceiling is way higher than that 1-2 record shows. You know, that Ricky Simone fight, I felt like it was 2 rounds to nothing going into that third round. And Merab actually did get finished. Let me tell you what happened. He shot a takedown on Ricky. He hit his head into the mat, and he knocked himself out. And then immediately he got swept into a guillotine. So he got knocked out, and he got choked out. But that being said, I still like him in this fight a lot, man. Look, Katona's exciting. I mean, I don't know if exciting is the right word. He's a cerebral fighter. He seems like he's smart. You know, he seems like he would fit in at a place like TriStar. But the guy's over there at SBG, you know, with the best-selling author as his coach, and he's got the black belt in jiu-jitsu. But man, I think he's going to get taken down over and over again. I feel like the pace of Merab is too much, and I'm going to go with Merab via decision here as well.
The best-selling author. That's going to be – I got to cut that one too, man. That was a great one. Katona's like an engineer too, right? Isn't he like a
he's an engineer or something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dave, what do you think? Any bets here?
I mean, I'm pretty much like everybody else on this one. It would be Merab by decision, but I'm not going to beat a dead horse and try to keep breaking it down more than it already been broken down by everybody on here.
All right, then I'll throw it right back to Tyler. Ty, before you came on, we were actually talking about this off the air, so this is nice. You're breaking the tie here. Cub Swanson and Shane Burgos. Burgos on my bookie is -175, and Cub Swanson is +145. So what do you think here, bro?
So I think, man, Cub Swanson, he's just not – he hasn't looked like a good fighter lately. I think that this is set up for Burgos to just tee off on him and knock him out. I hate to say it because I do like Swanson. I'm a fan of Burgos also, but, man, he just looks like he doesn't have it anymore. and it kind of sucks to say because I do like him. I was at the fight in LA when he lost to Moicano. Granted, it's Moicano, but Burgos is pretty high level also. And man, he even had the crowd behind him, and still just if this was a few years ago, maybe I'd be on him, but just not right now.
Yeah, and again, that holds a lot of weight with me since you're a California guy and you really do back these California fighters. So if you're not really on them.
That's Southern California though. That's completely different. That's like another state.
Well, California did try to beat 3 states at one point, right? So
yeah, I don't know what we're doing. But no, so actually before you guys went on air, Juan Adams told me to give you guys a message that he's happy and healthy in Canada right now, and that he can't wait to put on a show.
Well, listen, I introduced the fight time, and I said I'm betting him, so I know he's my guy. I don't know if everybody else agrees, but
I mean, you already know how I feel about it. I think that
this
Adams,
is true.
Yeah, he should get the knockout. At worst, he's going to get a one-sided decision.
So CG, I'm going to throw it to you because I know you have a little bit of a take here from off air. What do you think here about Swanson and Burgos?
I'm a big fan of Burgos. He's big for the division, 5'11", 75-inch reach. He's going to have the 5-inch reach advantage over Swanson, who dropped his last 3 fights, was finished in 2 of them. But as we talked before the show, I mean, Burgos keeps his hands low, doesn't have the best striking defense, was dropped in his last 2 fights. Swanson isn't the more technical fighter of the two, but he throws bombs. You know, that fight against Du Hoi Choi was an instant classic. And he proved in that fight that he can compete against the longer rangier strikers. But if Burgos, can keep his hands up, be the more technical fighter, keep Cub at range, then yeah, he should win the fight. I think he's the more talented fighter. He just has all the metrics point to him. 6.5 strikes per minute, going against 5.2 strikes per minute. He lands with more volume. I like Burgos in this fight, and who knows how much Cub has left at this point. He's 36 years old. Burgos is about 8 years younger, so I like Burgos.
And I'll even take it a step further. We got to give a little shout out to one of our sponsors. Eat Clean Bro is one of our sponsors. They also sponsor Shane Burgos. So if you go to Shane Burgos' Instagram page, he does have a little promotion for Eat Clean Bro. And they got a big shout out through this week from Corey Anderson. Corey Anderson did the Joe Rogan podcast, and they also shouted out Eat Clean Bro. So I appreciate them for sponsoring the podcast. Dan, what do you think here? Burgos, Swanson, I know who you're on already, but so just let us know.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and let y'all know that Burgos is about to put on a show here. Got a lot of respect for Cub Swanson, but, I mean, this is the fight game, man. He wants to come back for another one, and these things don't get better. These things only get worse. I mean, he's going to get his ass beat here. Listen, Cub Swanson, back in his day, I would say his prime was around the point where he beat George Roop, he beat Ross Pearson, he beat Dustin Poirier, Dennis Seaver. Like, that was his run right there. But once he fought Jeremy Stevens, that was supposed to be the fight that got him a title shot. We kind of weren't sure who won that fight. And even Dana, he didn't give him a title shot as a result. And then he took 2 L's in a row. And the wins since that point, I mean, Artem Lobov. I know the Du Ho Choi fight was very exciting, but, I mean, man, who's Du Ho Choi? You know what I'm saying, man? Like seriously, who is Du Ho Choi? Like, I respect him. He's fun to watch, but is that guy a top 15 fighter or something? You know what I mean? So Shane Burgos, at least he went out there, had a fight of the night with Calvin Kattar, who I know he's not ranked where I think he should be ranked, but in my eyes, Calvin Kattar's a top 5 guy. That might sound like a controversial statement, but that's how high I am on Calvin Kattar. Also, Calvin Kattar and Kurt Holloway, they're both, like 5'11", 6 feet tall featherweights, the guys that dropped him. I just don't think that Cub Swanson has that same firepower that he used to. And not to mention his jaw's been broken a bunch, so he's he's kind of timid to take a shot these days. Moicano has 0 knockouts on his record, and Moicano's going out there dropping him with jabs. I mean, I think Burgos is about to tee off on Cub Swanson and either get a knockout or a one-sided decision here.
Yeah, and Burgos definitely does have that jab that just like Moicano has. Dave, I'm going to throw it to you, but I think we're just going to go to this next fight because I think you agree with us there. This next fight is Derek Brunson and Elias Theodoro. Derek Brunson is -120, And for the most part, when he wins fights, he knocks people out. Elias Theodorou is -110 on my bookie. And when he wins fights, it's usually a split decision or unanimous decision. What do you think here, Dave?
Man, I've kind of gone back and forth on this fight this week. Theodorou just loves to pop in, hit a couple combinations, back out. He's always on his heels, running away from all his opponents. And then you got Brunson, who's always pressuring his opponents, and just trying to land the bombs, an occasional takedown. But the problem is in his last fight against Adesanya, he wasn't trying to set up any of his takedowns at all. He just kept reaching for that front leg, and then got caught multiple times. And that's what hopefully he doesn't do that versus Theodorou. Because Theodorou is a very smart fighter. But I think Brunson's going to be able to get him against the cage and hopefully get some takedowns, because Theodorou only defends at a 60% clip. And I think he might be able to get a nice ground and pound victory early on in this fight.
Kyle, what do you think here? Any bets on this fight?
Man, I hate this fight. Just to put it out there, I really don't like this fight. I've gone over the different scenarios, and I just see Theodorou doing his normal, boring decision. And I think that Brunson's only chance is if he's super aggressive and he ends up catching him. But other than that, I just see Theodorou pretty much outpointing him and winning a pretty one-sided decision. And I'm not going to personally bet it because I don't like Theodorou, but yeah.
Yeah, but with that being said, Derek Brunson does have that in him, right? To just kind of run into that aggressive style.
He does, but if he doesn't get to him early and Theodorou can kind of execute his game plan, he's in trouble late. And I just don't know if that's going to be his game plan, because Theodorou is tough also. I think he took Thiago Santos to a decision. He was in there with Anders. None of them were able to really kind of test him. I just don't see Brunson being that guy to do it.
Yeah, and again, if you are going to bet Brunson, I wouldn't bet Brunson straight up. I would bet him inside the distance or KO, TKO, if you do want to make a play on him at all.
I think the perfect play for this is just to stay away from this fight. I
do agree.
Yeah.
CG, what do you think?
So I have a hard stance on this fight. I like Brunson. When you look at Brunson's losses, they're to guys like Jacare, Romero, Whitaker, Adesanya. Elias has 9 wins by decision, and you look at his wins, who's his best win? Probably Ferreira, and that was a close fight. You can make the case that Ferreira won that fight. Lost to Brad Tavares, lost to Thiago Santos, guys that were actually ranked. He's never beat a ranked fighter ever. So, Theodorou works well in space. I don't think Brunson's going to give him that space. So I feel like Brunson either gets knocked out by a top 5 guy or he gets screwed on a decision like he did against Anderson Silva, where he outstruck him 54-43 and landed 2 takedowns and still lost a decision. And that's very possible on Saturday with these Canadian judges. But I just feel like, there's levels, and I feel like Brunson, although he doesn't have the best fight IQ at all. Fights, with his chin up, hands down. But Theodorou is not going to be a threat to knock him out. I like Derek Brunson.
All right. Dan, what do you think here? Brunson, Theodorou, any plays here?
Well said by my boy over there, because like you said, bro, Elias is not a threat to Brunson. So therefore, Brunson can go full Brunson in this fight. Keep your chin in the air, keep your hands down, charge him recklessly. And he's not going to make you pay like Israel Adesanya, who's holding UFC gold right now, Robert Whitaker, who's also holding UFC gold right now, and the other guys, Yoel Romero, who is a perennial #1 contender. So Elias isn't on these guys' level, but I will say this: so the fight's going to start out, and I would recommend that Brunson goes out there, tries to pin him up against the fence like he does to every single person he fights at the beginning. From there, separate, and then you try to kill the guy, throw the straight left, go full Brunson on him. And here's one thing I'll say though: if Elias can survive, this is going to be a very entertaining fight. And I know, if you guys have heard me talk about Elias before, criticize him for kicking the air and making tennis sounds and doing the whole bit. But in this fight specifically, I actually think it's going to be an exciting Elias fight because of how they both match up. If Brunson can't get him out of there in that first round, Brunson starts to kind of fight a little bit like Elias. He starts flailing as well. He starts looking very ugly. So I actually think that this fight's going to be super exciting if it goes 3 rounds, which is probably surprising for you guys to hear me say that. But that being said, I think Brunson does stop him here, and I think he's going to go full Brunson and get him out of there.
My question about Elias, though, is he going to be working in between rounds?
And I'll even go a step further. He definitely was working one of the fights on this card. I don't remember what fight it was, but I did write it down. I said, I think that's Elias Theodorou as the with the round card.
A quick narrative too. I think Derek Brunson's been training with Henry Hooft in Fort Lauderdale, so he's training with guys like Luke Rockhold, Volkan Ozdemir, all those monsters down there in South Florida. I think he usually trains in North Carolina, where he's from, at a smaller gym, so that could be very advantageous for him.
Dan, I'm going to throw it right back to you for this main event breakdown. Iaquinta, he's a local guy for us. I'm in Jersey. He's right over in New York and Long Island. He's a Cerro Longo guy. And Donald Cerrone, who, Cowboy, everybody loves Cowboy. So who do you like here in this main event? Right now on my bookie, Iaquinta is -120. Donald Cerrone is -110. And again, anybody who's looking to play some bets on here, if you go to mybookie.ag, our promo code is Brews, so you can put in Brews, 50% deposit bonus on $1,000 deposit. Dan, what do you think here?
Man, this is a really damn good fight. Obviously, Iaquinta has certainly earned his opportunity to face a guy like Cowboy Cerrone. I mean, when you talk about Iaquinta, you got to respect his knockout power, his boxing, just his well-rounded game. I know he's been caught with some submissions, but the guy, he's got some pretty damn good jiu-jitsu. And also, the guys he's beaten, has that win over Masvidal, which I know is controversial. But I still remember cashing a ticket on Iaquinta in that fight. And even though he clearly lost the first round, the second and third round were kind of close. And even if you score it for Jorge, you can at least give Al credit for taking the ass whooping he did take in that first round and coming back and putting a lot of effort out in that second and third round. So I got a lot of respect for the guy. Also took the fight with Khabib on 24-hour short notice. I know a lot of people praise his performance there. I kind of don't, man. I kind of wasn't impressed with him getting 50-43 in that spot, but I respect the fact that he took it on 24 hours notice. Like, the kid's got balls, no doubt about it. And since that point, obviously, he schooled Kevin Lee as well. But Cowboy Cerrone, I mean, this is nothing new to the guy. I mean, he's been fighting guys like Iaquinta since the WEC. I mean, he fought Jamie Varner, who was the Iaquinta back in WEC. He fought Eddie Alvarez, who was like the Iaquinta in the UFC. Now he's fighting Al. And, yeah, there's definitely a chance Al can come out here and overwhelm Cowboy, mix it up to the body. He's got the hands for sure. But, man, I'm feeling Cowboy right now. I'm going against the grain on this one, man. I feel like Cowboy, if he can weather, not necessarily weather an early storm, but find the timing of Iaquinta, that's when he can start to feel more comfortable, let the check knees go, let the kicks go, mix in takedowns, because although Iaquinta does have good takedown defense, Cowboy, he's got a sneaky double leg, man. He tends to take down almost every single person he fights with that double leg. And Iaquinta, he did get his back taken by Kevin Lee his last fight. I know Kevin Lee's a good grappler. I actually think Cerrone's a better grappler. And I think that there's a good chance Cerrone comes out here and submits Iaquinta. I'm not going to sit here and bring up the Mitch Clark fight. I can do that on half the battle. But you know Cerrone in his 10-plus years of fighting has never had a loss like that. I mean, every time he's lost, it's been the top guys in the world. You can never be like, well, remember that one time he lost to Mitch Clark? Like, there's none of that with Cerrone. It's, okay, he lost to Pettis, RDA, top guys on planet Earth. And he went up a weight class too. So Cerrone's a bad motherfucker. So is Iaquinta. I think if Iaquinta doesn't get him out early, that Cerrone takes over. I got Cerrone via submission.
Yeah, I was able to fight out of Kevin Lee taking it back, and even Khabib. Khabib had him down, and he was able to get back to his feet just about every time. Tyler, what do you think?
Yeah, so the reason why people could get Iaquinta's back when they take him down is because he gives that up to get back to his feet. And I noticed that in studying for the Khabib fight. That's why I thought Khabib was going to choke him out. But he surprisingly has some pretty good choke defense. So I don't really think that's going to be an issue. I'm actually waiting for more lines to come out because I think my play on the fight is Cerrone, but I think the only spot where he's going to have trouble is that first round. Everybody knows he's a slow starter usually. Iaquinta has power. If he can get to him in that first round, I think that's Iaquinta's best bet to put him out. And so I actually don't mind making a small play on Iaquinta to win in the first round and then making a much larger play on Cerrone to win outright, kind of just to cover my bases a little bit. But I think that as the fight goes, Cerrone's going to start picking him apart, work his leg kicks. And I think that as the fight goes on, he's going to start picking Iaquinta apart.
All right, so it sounds like we kind of have two guys on Cerrone right now. CG, what do you think here?
So out of respect for UFC Ottawa, I'm going to crack another Molson Canadian. So
that is respect.
This is the fourth fight in a row that we're getting Cowboy Cerrone at underdog odds. And you look at their striking volume, it's very close. Iaquinta's at 4.3. Cerrone's at 4.2. I think the better pocket boxer is definitely Iaquinta. But then again, you know, Cerrone has the more versatile striking game with the tie knees and the kicks. And Cerrone also has the better grappling, the better submissions. Although I will say that Iaquinta's submission defense was much better against Kevin Lee. I want to say Kevin Lee had 3 takedowns, was going for that rear naked choke. Iaquinta defended nicely. But when you really analyze the fight and you look at the avenues to victory, you know, they can both strike, but Cerrone has the better takedowns and he has the better submissions. So if I can get Cowboy at underdog odds, and I picked against him in his last 2 fights, he keeps on proving me wrong. I like Cowboy in this fight.
All right, so we got 3 people on Cowboy. Dave, what do you think here, bro? Anybody on Iaquinta with me or what? I'm the only one on Iaquinta here?
I'm gonna have to join the gang over there and go with Cerrone as well. The only thing that worries me a little bit is Cerrone has a weak when anybody hits into the stomach, he ends up folding a little bit. But Iaquinta doesn't go there very often. I looked at the stats quickly, and 10% of the times in fights he throws at the head or at the body. So I don't think it's going to be too big of a concern. But basically, if you look at the stats, you look at everything, Cerrone has the edge. He has the edge in striking, pace. He has the edge on the ground. He has the edge in takedowns. I just don't know where Iaquinta is going to have the advantage in this fight. I think Cerrone's the play.
All right, so I'm the only one on Iaquinta here. Guys, I think this was one of the best Brews and Bets that we've had. The experience and the round table here. We got to do this again sometime. Let's just go around real quick and let everybody pitch their stuff. Tyler, you're still doing prize picks projections this week?
Hey, real quick. Sorry to interrupt you. You're not going to tell us why Iaquinta's going to win?
I think Iaquinta's going to be able to hurt him to the body on the feet. I think he's going to be able to outland him. I am concerned with – I'm not really concerned with the takedowns, to be honest with you. I'm concerned with Cerrone's kicks more than anything, the way that he's able to strike and use all his weapons. But I was very impressed with Iaquinta against Kevin Lee. I'm a big Kevin Lee fan, and I just didn't think Iaquinta was going to be able to really hurt Kevin Lee the way that he did. And I think as the fight goes on, I think you and Tyler were saying it before, or Tyler was definitely saying it before. As the fight goes on, I kind of think Iaquinta is going to be able to hurt Cerrone and maybe even finish him. But that's where I am in that fight.
Actually, Dan, let me tell you the real reason why Steve's on Iaquinta.
Go ahead.
It's because he's a Jersey guy.
Well, it's true. I mean, he is a local guy, man.
I didn't want to say it.
Don't get me wrong. 100%, I am an Iaquinta guy. I do like him. I did pick Kevin Lee over him. Kevin Lee's one of my favorite fighters, and I did pick him over Al, but I was very impressed with Al in that fight. He changed me in that fight.
I'll say this. It's not a bad thing historically when betting to be the one guy that's on the opposite side of a bunch of people. So you might be onto something, my man. I can't wait to find out.
Listen, that's who I'm on, and that's who I like. Now, that being said, I'll go back a few fights here. I've been right with Cerrone for about 5 fights in a row. I was on Masvidal. I was on Till. And I was on Cerrone for the last 2 submissions, right? It was what were the fights in a row? It was Mike Perry. I was on Cerrone in the Mike Perry fight. Actually won a decent amount of money on DraftKings. And who was the last Cerrone? I was on I was on him. Cerrone against Alex Hernandez. I actually covered that over at that was over at the Garden, I believe, right? Was that in Brooklyn or at the Garden? But I was at that fight. I covered it. So this could be 6 in a row with me with Cerrone. Just gonna say there.
The underdogs have won the main event for the past like 6 out of like 7 cards or something weird like that.
Yeah, 7 out of the 8 this year.
It's crazy.
So Tyler, what do you think? Prize picks? Projections? What are you doing?
Yeah, so I'll have the projections up tomorrow. So if you disagree with any of my analysis on the fights, go try to take some money from me.
Yeah, and definitely if to support the podcast, mybookie.ag. I know I said it again before, but if you sign up with code Brews, that would help us out a lot. And if anybody's looking for DFS information, Tyler and I work for the Quan Edge, so you could always come over to the Quan Edge with code Brews. And Dave, you have DFS info too going up?
Yeah, I work over at Daily Fantasy Insiders, and you can find my content there, and you can follow me on Twitter at Dr. Beans17.
And Dan, we know you do the DraftKings thing, but you're more of the betting guy. So why don't you pitch your betting stuff?
Well, first of all, man, thank you so much for having me on the show. It was an absolute pleasure. Like I said at the beginning of the show, you guys have always shown me a lot of support, a lot of love. So it was a lot of fun to come on here and talk fights with you guys. I'm down to do it anytime. For all the fans of Jersey Boys, thank you guys as well. You can follow me on Twitter at Best Fight Picks. You can check out my show, Half the Battle, wherever podcasts are available. And my bets are at bestfightpicks.com. I'm going on my 5th year of track bets and looking to make it 5-0. So let's get it this weekend, guys.
Yeah, definitely. Sign up for Dan's picks and then go right over to my bookie. Sign up, use code Brews, and you're making all of us happy. So again, everybody, good luck with your bets this week. I appreciate you all coming on the show.
If you're an MMA junkie, you'll want to catch the first ever Bellator welterweight Grand Prix title fight on April 27th. And if you're a wise guy, you'll be betting on the fight at MyBookie. Rory McDonald will defend his title against John Fitch after failing to become Bellator's first dual division champ in his last fight. Ilima McFarlane will also put her unbeaten professional record to the test at the Bellator 220. The Eliminator will face Veda Ortega in the co-main event. Whether you want to bet on the underdogs to win the fight or determine which round McDonald will deliver a knockout, MyBookie loves MMA and consistently delivers a great selection of bets for every fight night, from UFC to Bellator. Even better, they process all payout requests within 48 hours, so you'll get paid fast when you win. Best of all, their easy-to-use mobile site lets you place bets within seconds from anywhere. And to make sure you have plenty of cash, MyBookie will give you a 50% bonus on your first deposit. Just visit mybookie.ag today and use promo code BREWS. That's promo code BREWS. Things are simple with MyBookie. Play, win, and get paid.
Yeah. I always walk in the cage at least 283.
283.
The lightest I've ever walked is like for one of my amateur fights. I think I walked in at 275, and I just didn't really feel quite as strong as I normally do. So 280 to 285 is that magic range for me where I feel my best. Or my trainer says that's where I'm my best. I think I'm my best at 295, but I don't want to have that big of a gut on TV now. I'm getting more coverage. I got to look good.
Yeah. So being that Bhullar is such a good wrestler, I know you have a wrestling background also, but have you switched anything in training or?
No, I mean, it's funny that people say he's like such a good wrestler. He's really not. He wasn't even an Olympian. He was an Olympic alternate, one. And two, it's Canada. Like, can you name the last Canadian Olympic champion?
No, I can't.
Yeah, you can't. There's 5 true heavyweights in all of Canada, so I'm not super. There's not a whole lot of competition there. And I went back to his college wrestling days where he wrestled the NAIA, which is at best you can say it's Division II NCAA. I have over 100 Division I matches in college. I think I'm better at wrestling than him. If we do go straight wrestling, that would be his only chance at winning. But I'm not super concerned, man. I just look at him, and even if he is in any field, if he were to have a technical advantage, I'm so much bigger than he is. It doesn't really matter to me. Like, what is he, 6'1"? I'm 6'5". He's got a 75.5-inch reach. Mine's 81. He walks around maybe at 240, 250, and I'm cutting down from 295. Like, it just, on paper, is not good for him. So even if he did have a technical advantage, I think I'm so big and so powerful, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I was just watching some videos that other people have done on YouTube of breaking down the fight, and they were concerned about the wrestling, but I kind of feel the way that you thought anyway.
Yeah,
honestly, Bhullar hasn't looked good in his wrestling in the UFC so far.
He got submitted, right?
One thing we've noticed about Bhullar is, you know, he does have a very naturally neutral stance. And while that's like good for everyday life and athletics, it's really not. It's a lot of strain on your back. And, you know, if he were to shoot like that on me, I could just, one, I'm so tall, even if he did fully extend, my feet would still be on the ground. So we're not overly concerned about it. Obviously, we're prepared and we respect him as an athlete and as a competitor, but we're not like sitting here saying like there's nowhere in this fight we don't feel comfortable going.
Yeah, I noticed he leaves his neck out a lot when he shoots in. Also, it's like he old school wrestling style instead of the MMA style takedowns.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching, everyone. This is your producer, David. We really hope that you enjoyed the show. This is a new style of show that we're going with today. And be sure to like and subscribe on all of our social medias. And stay tuned for more upcoming Brews and Bets meetings.